Hey guys, today we're still kind of covering summary statistics. It's about percentiles and outliers. And if you notice, I have my lovely calculator over here, which means I'm giving you calculator tips. Woohoo! Um, so make sure you have your calculator out and you know how to follow all the steps that go along with it. But first, let's talk about what is a percentile. First of all, a percentile describes the percentage of value at or below a particular value of interest. So really what that's saying is when we were talking about the quartiles, we said 25% fell below quartile 1. Well, that's cool, but what if you wanted to know where 33% of your data fell or something like that? That's what a percentile tells you. So we know specific percentiles, Q1, the median, and Q3. However, we can also calculate other values in there. So first, let's talk about our calculator. We're going to do a technology check, and it's going to show you all the stuff that we've been doing by hand the last few days, but now in your calculator. So woohoo! So the first thing that you're always going to do whenever whenever you have a set of data is you're going to go find that stat button. So stat is, I can't even read my screen. Stat is right here over by the left arrow. So if you need to like highlight that on the notes or like, make a big note, obviously you're in statistics, so the stat button is super helpful. So in order to get to your enter points, you're going to go to stat and then edit, which is what the default screen is, and then you're going to press enter on edit. And then you can type in all of your data points. Now you do have to type in enter after every single data point. So I already have mine in because it would take me too long to type it. But like if you hit 8, you have to hit enter afterwards. You can't just start typing the next one. And you also can't press down. You have, well, I guess this one you can press down. Wow, I just learned something. Big thing whenever you're typing in data into your lists. If, for instance, you're like, I'm done with this, I now need to get rid of all these values. You can go in and delete them one by one, but of course, if you have a big list, it's going to take a while. But you have to, if you're going to delete your entire, like whatever's in the list, clear it out, please press clear and then enter. Because if you press the delete button, it literally gets rid of the entire list. Like, where's L2? So you either would have to reset your calculator or know some other tricks and just don't hit delete. Just hit clear and enter at the top of your list to delete stuff. Okay? So that is your first important information. Okay, so once you've entered all your data in cell 1, you can do a bunch of cool stuff. So the first one is you can order your data, aka when I told you have to put these in order from least to greatest, it can do it for you. So once you have everything in L1, you go to stat, and then you go to either sort A or sort D. Sort A is going to sort ascending, going down, or sorry, going up. I don't know, it's different. And descending is going to sort them going down. So in order for me to press that, you're going to press enter. It's going to bring you back to your home screen. And you're going to have to tell your calculator where to go. In order to get that list, if you hit second where it says list, then you can pick L1. So again, if you need to make a note of that, you hit second stat and then you can find L1. And then you just press enter and it'll sort your list for you. And if you go back to stat, you'll see lovely. It's going in order from least to greatest. So now I have all my stuff listed out if I needed to write it all down. It'll do the same thing for descending as well. Okay. So then the last thing you can do, I mean, you can do a lot more than this, but you can find your one variable statistics. You can find your mean, your median, and your standard deviation, all those fun things. So if you go into this stat button again, and instead of going to edit, you're going to go to calc. You notice there's lots of interesting stuff. You've probably seen the regression stuff before, but we're going to do calc and then one var stats, one variable statistics. You're not going to change anything here unless you somehow put it in a different list, and then you're just going to press calculate. So you get all of this interesting information. I typed in like data and I didn't even say what I was doing. I was just doing it. This is the data from example 1, also the one we did yesterday. So with this, you can see right here, this X bar is going to be your sample mean. Okay, so that's X bar, the one we've been doing, that's the mean. This is adding up all the numbers, adding up all the squares. Some of these you don't really need. What you really need to know is that you want to find the one that says S sub x, we're going to start using other variables, including this guy, but we don't want that one. Off of your calculator, you're always going to pick s sub x. And so I could say that the standard deviation is about 3.1, nope, 3.20. Okay. It also tells you how many is in there, how many numbers you've put in there. You have your min, you have your Q1, your Q median, and your Q3. So you have all of the things that we've been talking about. So it doesn't actually calculate your IQR for you, but you're smart enough. You would know that if you had your Q1 and your Q3, you could just take Q3 minus Q1 and get that number that we had. Okay. So again, this is how you can find this information out from your calculator without having to do a lot of ordering and being annoying and all that stuff. Okay. So yay, calculators. Woohoo. So let's talk a little bit about percentiles with my calculator, because now I have my calculator information here, which is so nice. So percentiles, in order to find a percentile, you do need to do things like order your data from least to greatest. So again, we can make my calculator do that for me, which was very, very kind. Thank you, calculator. So I have all of the numbers right here in order. After you've ordered your data from least to greatest, and I just am kind of all over the place. This is the same information from the last time where they talked about the 15 male students that were randomly selected and their heights were recorded. So we're going to highlight the value that you want to calculate the percentile rank on. So if I look at this problem, they're asking me to find the percentile rank of a male who is 70 inches tall. So I'm going to look and I'm going to find the 70, okay? You're going to count all of the values that are the same. So we're going to find the one that's actually right here. Pick the second one, or like whichever one is farthest along, because we're going to count all of the ones that are the same as part of that percentile. Okay, so you've highlighted the value that you want to calculate the percentile rank on. Now we're going to count all the values that are the same and every value below the data value of interest. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 that are at or below 70. Okay, so we found that. Now we're going to calculate the percentile rank using this lovely formula. We love formulas. So it's pretty straightforward. You're going to use, I just crossed out the n. So we have the number of observations at or below, which is 10. So we're going to have 10 over, and now n is your total. So in this case, we had 15 samples. So we're going to do 10 over 15. Okay. I'm going to use my calculator for this. We're going to express the percentile as a percentage rounded down. So if you type this in your calculator, you're going to get 0.66 repeating, da, 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 da. Remember, we want to do this as a percentage. We're not talking about a 0.66. We want to do it as a percent. So in order to make a percent happen, remember, you move your decimal twice. So I would get 66%. So now I have the number, but I have to put it in context. So context cat is here to help us. So 66% of male heights in this sample are at or below 70 inches. So really we're just saying what we calculated. We found out that 66, or about 2/3 of male heights, are at or below that number that they gave me, the point of interest. So percentiles are pretty straightforward. You just tell me how many are there that are at or below that point of interest, and then how many are there total, part over whole, and then turn it into a percent value. Okay? So the last thing that's super important about knowing with summary statistics are things called outliers. And that's what you think it sounds like. An outlier is saying this value is strange. It doesn't fit in this set. It lies outside of what I would expect for this set. There are a couple of ways we can find outliers. The first way is this interesting formula. It's a value that's 1.5 times the IQR below Q1 or above Q3. You also know it's an outlier if it's located 2 or more standard deviations below or above the mean. We're actually going to use the 1.5 IQR right now in order to find outliers, just because it's a little bit simpler to calculate. But here you go. In order to find the upper and lower limits of acceptable values, so if you had a set of values and you wanted to know, is this an outlier, you use this formula. So you're going to have that Q1 minus 1.5 IQR. Again, that's going to be below that first quartile, and then the upper limit is the same thing, you just add it. So that 1.5 IQR is something really, really important to remember. So if I look at this example, again, we're using the same set of data. The male student whose height is 77 inches appears to be an unusual value compared to the other heights. Use the rule to check the data for outliers. So use the 1.5 IQR. Okay, so using what I had from my calculator before. Again, my calculator already gave me all of this information in this cool little thing over here. So I can find my IQR pretty quickly. My Q1 was 67. My Q3 is 71. Okay, so that makes my IQR Q3 minus Q1, so 71 minus 67, which surprises 4. Okay, so again, I used my calculators being my friend in order to find that particular piece of information. So now I want to find my lower and my upper bounds for this data set. So to find the lower limit, the lower bound, I'm going to take Q1, so this number right here, 67, and I'm going to subtract 1.5 times what I just found to be the IQR. Okay, again, just type that in your calculator to get a number, 61. So any values below 61 in my data set would be an outlier. So if you notice there aren't any 61s or below down here, so that's good. That means that all of them fall below my lower limit or above my lower limit. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing for my upper limit. We're going to have the upper Q1, or sorry, Q3, I don't know what I'm doing, 71 plus that 1.5 times the IQR. Again, type it in your calculator, and I get that is 77. Okay, so that means that any value that is above 77 would be an outlier in my data set. Okay, that is above the acceptable value. So if I look here, they're asking me for this 77. Oh, it was a different color than I thought. Oh, I turned it green. Okay, so I'm looking for 77. Now 77 is the upper limit, however, it is an acceptable value. Okay, it is the topmost value I could have. However, it is acceptable, which means that 77 is not an outlier in this data set. So in context, since 77 falls in our acceptable range of heights, our acceptable range was 61 to 77 inches, it is not an outlier. So if I had a number like 80 in my data set, then yes, that would have been an outlier. Or if I'd had a number like, I don't know, 32, that would have definitely been an outlier. That would have been a really short person. Okay, and that's all I've got.